Hello, everybody. We are live. Yay. Hey, you over there. Are you called Schmeckelhead
Or doodle bops,
or Knickersnickerdoodles
or doofus.
or Dum Dum?
I cringe when I hear the names people call their animals because oftentimes they're quite derogatory, and I'm like, oh, do you realize what that energy is projecting at your animal? It's like I remember one of the first classes I was ever in with you, Susie, and this lady had to take on her daughter's Rottweiler, and she lived in a two-bedroom apartment somewhere in a high rise with two cats, and the dog's name was Hunter. Oh
Yep.
God! What do you think the cat? What do you think the dog did with the cat
Yep.
when its name's Hunter?
Yeah, I
Oh,
remember that really well. It was so interesting. And and it's really like, oh gosh, you and I, we have worked over the years with so many people, and a lot of times the name is really not relevant. Your cat, your dog is quite happy with the name they have or not. Um, but then sometimes it can really create some strange energies. And I remember too, like I had a lady riding my horse. This is a long time ago, and my horse's name was Jack. And she called him Dumbhead, and it was so interesting. Like, and she was riding him almost daily for a while, but she called him Dumbhead. And so one time, and I didn't know this, but one time I went to ride him and he was so strange. Like he was not himself. He was being really weird. I didn't know what was going on. And then some other lady told me that that's what that like that she had heard her say that to the horse. And I was like, oh, that's that energy that's going on. Because it's not that your animals understand your language. I mean, the horse may not know what a dumbhead is. Like, it's not about the actual word, but whatever the energy is you're delivering with that. And
mm,
so when you are actually having the point of view that you are dealing with a dumb animal and you keep saying, oh, you're so dumb, you know,
mm.
then then the animal is going to have to respond to that in some way, or not have to, but a lot of them do, and they want to become the energy that you keep projecting because they actually don't have a point of view. The horse doesn't care if it's seen as dumb or smart, really. It's
Mm.
like, oh, you want me to be dumb, all right, I'll be dumb.
Yeah, and I know this might sound a bit out there for some people, but words carry energy,
Mm.
and it's the energy behind that word, like you were saying, Susie. So, what is it that you call your animals? Because if you think about a herd of horses, they don't all know each other's names. Well, I don't think they'd all know each other's names. They call each other names out there. Hey, Stan, yeah, what are you doing, Trevor? you know I don't think, even though, you kind of look at the old Far Side cartoons, for those of you that remember, was it Greg Larson or somebody Larson that had the Far Side funniest cartoons ever with animals? Anyway, I digress. But yeah, it's like they don't have that definition. They don't have that description and that label that they put on each other. So when you think about how often you talk to your animals, if you talk to your animals, what energy is it that you're being when you call them? I go down to the park sometimes and people are screaming at the top of their lungs at their dog, get here now. I'm like, if I was your dog, I'd really love to run up to you when you're doing that to them. It's like, what if you want to get their attention, goof around, call their name, wave your arms. You've got to be more interesting to
Run,
them than the
run
smell
away
or the
from
stick
them.
or another dog's butt. It's like, if you're screaming and yelling and projecting a really harsh energy, what are they going to choose?
Hmm.
So yeah, and so the names that we give them, and it is funny. I mean, it's kind of like this relationship that we build with our animal where sometimes people replace them as their children, and they have a different, um I don't even know how to put that energy into words. They have a different relationship with that animal. So it's not relevant, but sometimes it is relevant with what you're calling them and whatever that name is. And the other part of this is, for those of you that are getting a new animal or you're even adopting an animal, do they want the name that they've come with?
Oh
What
gosh,
name
yeah.
would, what name would suit them too?
Yeah. And to be honest, that's funny too. Like I've had it a few times where, people get really for example, I got a dog once out of the shelter that I was basically I was fostering her, and I named her Savannah because that sort of felt like that's was fitting with what she was, showing and all that. So her name was Savannah. And then actually when I moved her on, she didn't want to live with me forever because I travel a lot. And so she was very clear, like, hey, this isn't working for me. I need something else. But I realized later I was her stepping stone out of the shelter, and she really needed me because I was willing to deliver what she needed to kind of get moving. But so
Mm.
then when I moved her on, the guy who took her, what I didn't know was his ex-girlfriend's name was Savannah. And so he was like, I'm not calling her that. And so but then he thought he had to call her something close. So he started calling her Samantha, which I thought was funny because and it was actually great, but it doesn't matter. If you think about it, when an animal gets put in the shelter, nobody knows what their name was, so they just name it something.
Mm.
And then you
Mm.
get it and you name it something else. It doesn't matter. Like,
Mm.
please don't try to go, oh God, now I have to get my animal used to their new name. No, you can pick the name. And if it's a name that actually fits the animal really well, you know it. Because all of a sudden there's an energy that's actually the joy of that. When they hear their name, they're joyful. When they're engaging with you, it's like this joyful energy. But if it's something that isn't working for them, it can really create some behavioral issues. I've had
Mm.
some animals
Mm.
really behave and act in a very strange way, and then when I would ask, "Oh, do you like your name?" And they'd be like, "No." And then we would change the name and their behavior would change. That always blows me away. Like,
Mm.
and this wasn't even like a
Yeah.
derogatory name of some way. It was just a name, but they just did not like it.
It's
So,
so funny, Susie, because right at the beginning of this conversation, I had Savannah in my awareness. And Susie's, I just have to share, the reason I cracked up laughing was the first time I met Savannah, it was in Texas, and she was right at the top of a tree like a leopard. This is what was she, an American
a
bulldog?
pit bull. No, she was a
Yeah,
pit bull.
a pit bull. And here's this pit bull. They're solid dogs. They're muscly, solid dogs at the top of this tree, right out on the branch. And Susie's like, if the branch breaks, you know what's going to happen. You're going to come crashing down. But even the name Savannah, to me, it represents where I went with that is, yeah, the leopards on the plains, the big cats on the big plains. And what do? They love to get up in trees and lie and sleep where they've got perfect vision for everything. Yeah. And you touched on something really brilliant, Susie, because I think a lot of working with animals and being with animals invites us to be present and be congruent with the energy. And what do I mean by congruent? It means that, say, for instance, with a name, when you address that animal with that name, there's just this click, there's a smoothness, there's a connection, there's a receiving of that. And that's what congruency is. It kind of it's fluid, it flows and it matches. So if you've got a new animal or you are rescuing an animal and it wants a different name, when you try the different names on for size, one of those will just kind of sit, one of those will just
Mhm.
kind of fit, and the animal will give you a response in regards to, yeah, that one.
Yeah.
So, it helps you be more energetically congruent with the words that you're using and the energy that you're being, because often as people, this is what confuses animals. We'll say one thing, but our energy will be completely different. So they read the energy and get confused by the words that we're using if they don't match the energy. So, I love this. I love this part of Talk to the Animals
Yeah.
because it's such a muscle for us to build. When you hear people, they just talk about stuff and it's like that they're not actually congruent with what they're saying. So yeah.
Totally. And and don't stress out. Like if right now you're like, oh, does my animal have, is their name correct and all that? You can actually ask them energetically, hey, do you like your name? And you will get a response, either nothing, which is most likely it doesn't matter, or you will get a yes, or you will get a no. And if you do get a no, then just ask, hey, what would you like to be called? And then just be with that energy, because to be honest, like, it took me weeks every time that I adopted an animal,
Mm,
to really get it, and or get it, all of a sudden be like, oh, that's the name. And then once, like Viv was saying, like, once that name is there that actually goes with that animal, it really is a click. It's like, yep, that's the name, that's correct,
mm,
um and I have to say, like, I have a horse, that I haven't been engaging with a whole lot, and I think her name is gonna be different, because it doesn't really sit anymore, and I'm like, "This isn't really." Yes, I gave her a name so she would have a name, but, I don't actually think this will be her name.
mm.
Um, so I'm excited to find out what that would be. But one thing I have to say too, like, for example, with my cat, and this was so far a one-off for me. Um, he came to me, and literally that first day I came, anyway, I found him, I had to leave him for a couple hours, I came back, and it was like, "Paul." And I'm like, "Paul?" And he's like, "Paul." And I said, "Oh, you mean your name is Paul?" "Paul." And I was like, "Alrighty then, Paul it is." You know? And so that was so like, boom, and I've never had that before, so that was really special. He really was like, "Nope, that's my name, and you better know it."
I just every time I think about your cat, his name just cracks me up. The cat called Paul, you know?
Yep.
But they do. If you're willing to be that present with them and have no point of view, this is the thing. It's not, well, I'm going to call my animal this, because people can get really thingy about names. They can get really fixated on it. And like you said, Susie, I mean, we spoke about, I think in the last, or maybe the conversation before, about Diablo, the Black Panther. And Diablo means devil.
Mhm.
So any wonder they were having problems with a Black Panther called Devil, and they renamed him Spirit because that's what she picked up. It's like, well, for me, it's obvious, but to some people, this is brand new information. So, like Susie said, don't get too wound up about it, and just ask your animal really simply, "Hey, do you like your name?" And when you ask the question, just sit and be with that. It's not like your brain's going to start whirring and thinking and over processing. Part of communicating with animals is it's like blowing a dandelion. You ask the question, you blow the dandelion, and let the whispers, let the information, let the awareness come in. Because, like you said, Susie, sometimes it can take a few weeks for that animal's name to come in. I had a horse, it took me about a month, and is it Pearl? Is it this? Is it that? And it's like, nope, 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 nope. L. Oh, L. Yes, I'll be called L. But it took 3 weeks.
Mm.
So just when you ask the question, please don't pressurize yourself to come up with it. They don't care if they've got a name or not. They're connecting with you energetically. So,
Mhm.
and then it will, because I think this is a part of asking questions and animal communication where people's minds can get too, they want everything quicker, faster, yesterday. They think that they have to have that logical, rational, explainable information straight away. Sometimes it does come in like Paul, and sometimes it does take a little while. So, just lightly with a feather touch, ask the question and carry on with your day. Don't get too caught up with it. And if they do want to change the name, they'll make it obvious to you.
They will too, because, for example, I got a few animals also from situations where they already had a name and the name was known, and I just kept it because it actually was fine. Like, it
Mm,
didn't seem that there was an issue with it. It was just, yep, that's a cool name. Yeah,
mm,
and then there's these other situations where you might really go, and it's funny because you might go, "Well, how would I know?" Because it also puts a crinkle in your universe, you know? So
Mm,
if you have a little bit of a crinkle in your universe every time you're addressing your animal, or you're always like, "Ugh, I wish it was a different name," or, like, that's the kind of stuff. If you have that going on, that's most likely because the animal is not enjoying their name either.
mm,
And this is the way that the universe is communicating that to you, because it just doesn't feel right to you. It
mm,
just feels off, It's like, every time I call my dog, you know. So have a look at that, because if that's going on, then maybe it's time for a different name. And it's never, never, never a problem. Like, I was talking to someone, and she renamed her dog after having him for years. And she renamed him, and she said their entire relationship changed and everything got
mm,
easier. And this was just from one name to another. And the two names were completely different. But it actually, like, it didn't take the dog very long to get used to their new name, because also it energetically was fitting, and so that was easy to change it. So
mm.
don't worry about that part, because I get that sometimes people can get so wound up, but, "Oh, my animal is used to that name." Yes, they are, but if it's not working, they will actually be happy to change it too.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and something you touched on at the beginning, to maybe this is another conversation we can have too, Susie, is, projections. You were saying about
Mm,
my animal's dumb or my animal's stupid, or, doofus, or these kind of light-hearted names or energies that people project at their animals. It does have an impact on them. If somebody kept calling you doofus over and over again, or stupid or dumb or whatever, you do start to kind of change when that name or that energy is projected at you. And this is where, again, where we see a lot of animals with quote unquote problems, because the past owner, or what, if it's an adopted animal, whatever, it's been given up for a reason. They've given up on it for some reason. Sometimes it is a legitimate reason. Somebody's died, or they just can't look after them. But a lot of the times, the animals that end up, especially in the pound, or that are being passed on to a new home, it's because they've got a problem that somebody else hasn't been able to fix, and possibly have added to creating. So, it doesn't matter what has been in the past. If you do take on a new animal, it's got a brand new beginning with you. It's got a whole new chapter. And animals don't, they don't hold grudges. They don't remember what happened 7 years ago on the 1st of January. They don't do that stuff. Some of the greyhounds that we had, I mean, they come straight off the racetrack with their racing name. The first thing that people do, so they get taken off the racetrack, and they go into, like, the main carer's home for a few days, just to kind of get to know them and work out what their personality is before they send them out to the foster homes, so they're more suitably matched. And the first thing they do is they change the animal's name, because they want whatever has been with that animal up until that point, it's history. It's no longer relevant. This dog is now having a whole new life. So,
mm, mm.
it's just and it's an honoring. If you do it from a place of asking them and including them, it's their life, it's their choice. So yeah, it's another great journey that you can have with them.
Totally.
Awesome,
Yay.
Susie.
Well, thank you, Viv. Or is that your
Thank you.
name? No, I'm kidding.
I've had so many nicknames, I could write a book on it.
Really? Have you?
Yeah, yes.
Wow, interesting.
So many nicknames. So we are beginning our Talk to the Animals Certified Facilitator training this time tomorrow. So Susie and I will be seeing each other as we introduce more new Talk to the Animals facilitators to the world, coming to a country near you soon. So until that, we've got another Facebook Live scheduled for next week. So we will, is it next week, Susie? I think
Yeah, I
so.
think so. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. More conversations to come.
And in the
Thanks,
meantime,
everybody.
may the horse be with you.
May the horse be with you. I love it.
Meh. Bye,
Meh.
Susie. Bye,
Bye.
Susie Pants.